Welcome to Inspire Me with Jay, a podcast discussing meditation, the near-death experience, spiritually inspirational and transformative experiences. Welcome to Inspire Me with Jay. I'm your host, author, and teacher, Jay Spillers. I have Carrie as a guest today. Carrie, how are you?
Wonderful. How about you, Jay?
Oh, I'm doing pretty good. Why don't you tell the audience about your experience? Because you had two near-death experiences, didn't you?
Yeah, I've died twice. It actually, if I can go back even prior to my near-death experiences, because there's a lot of interviews out there right now that pertain to my two near-death experiences, but not much goes in before and after. And before I died for the first time, I am Métis. I don't look it, but I'm Aboriginal. I'm Cree and Ojibwe, and there's a throwback in every generation. So there's a blonde in every generation. So I've had a gift of sight since I was about 2 or 3, as long as I can remember. I have memories back to 2 weeks old. Actually, is my first memory. And my mom confirmed that memory. So I've had a gift of sight all my life, basically. When I died the first time, it was very dark. It was very negative. Gosh, I had an abortion and I was beating myself up mentally. You know, my internal verbiage was so harsh and I truly hated myself for what I had done. And so when I died, I was really surprised. I had choked on my own vomit. I was drinking heavily for about 4 years. And I got so drunk that, passed out, and boom, I was out of my top of my head and I was floating above. And all of these dark little gremlin kind of creatures started coming out of the walls and the floors. And then the snake came up through the center of the floor. And he morphed, the big giant snake morphed into what we would know as the D. Can't really say it on a lot of shows now, right? But I came toe to toe with him, and his eyes would undulate. He would, it was like a hypnotic trance. And I was an atheist. I didn't believe in anything. I didn't want to believe in anything because, my goodness, if I actually believed in something, then I'd have to be accountable. And I'd think, I'm really going to HELL because of what I did with, having the abortion. And so here I was face to face with this. Oh, he was nasty. And I thought, okay, so if he's real, if he's standing in front of me, there's got to be contrast. There's got to be something good to this. So I immediately, it was instinctual. I called in God and Jesus to be by my side, and God came to my right and Jesus came to my left. And as soon as this thing saw them, it ran. And so did all the little gremlin things. And my room was clear. But then if you read my book, I told the whole story in the 5 lessons of life. And really that's what it all breaks down to, is we're here to learn 5 lessons of life. And I didn't learn that until my second near-death experience. So going back to my first near-death experience, it was really dark. This thing left as soon as God and Jesus were by my side. And I asked Creator, why was it here? What was it doing? Because I felt like it was lifting me up and it was about to take me down that hole. And Creator confirmed that. He said he's collecting souls. And so, that made me look at our whole life differently, and how we, look at our family units and how we look at society, and especially how we look at ourselves with our internal dialogue. Because what they shared with me was, I always thought I was such a good person. Why was I going to HELL, right? It didn't make sense to me. And I mean, I was sweet and innocent till I was almost 20. I waited for a boyfriend forever. Makes me choke up because I tried so hard to be a good person, right? And there I was face to face with this thing. The reason why was because of the internal dialogue. So Creator basically said, you got to turn your life around. You're going down a really harsh path and you got to turn it around. You got to come to a place of faith and trust and forgiveness for yourself and compassion for yourself and unconditional love. You got to love thyself, love thyself, love thyself. That's what they kept saying to me. Love thyself. And so I did that for the next year. I turned my life around. I moved immediately once I cleaned up my surroundings, and I found a place. That's a whole nother story. Spirits started talking to me immediately the next morning. And yeah, I was directed from that day forward. So ever since then, I am not only clairvoyant, I can see things, I'm clairaudient, clairsentient. So I hear things, I sense things, I see everything. I can see spirits behind you, I can see your spirit guides, I get messages for people. So now I do counseling, I do all kinds of stuff. I do workshops and, all that kind of stuff. But it's been a journey. So my second near-death experience was a year later. I had met my first husband, and that was 1993. And so my near-death experiences were in 92, 93. So just prior to my second near-death experience, I had met my husband, and I had gotten engaged within 2 weeks of meeting him, which is kind of crazy. But I had had reoccurring dreams of him all my life. I knew his eyes. The moment I saw him, I knew that's him. I've been waiting for him. And so I was feeling a little apprehension about, this is moving too quick. And I had had a lifetime of heart issues. And so I ended up having a heart attack. And again, I slipped out of my body. I was hovering above, and a big, beautiful brown bird came and picked me up, and by the back of the neck, my spirit, and brought me up into the white void, which we know as heaven. And that was the beginning of my second set of lessons. The first set of lessons, the first near death, was all about getting back on path. The second set was, now that you're on path, what are you going to do about it? Right? So that was, it was really, it was life-changing. But I think all of us have the ability to see and do what I did without having to die. You can actually just meditate and call in spirit, call in God, call in Jesus, whoever it is for you, Buddha, Allah, whoever it is, right? And you can call them in and get your direction, get your life purpose. I think I actually have a podcast as well. And I had a guest on just recently, Daniel Jackson, and he too is a psychic medium. And I've never met anyone that is so similar, same experiences. But what he was saying was about life experiences was that it's in the small things, right? We think that life experience is this big, grandiose, what are we going to do on this planet? And what I got from him and also from downloads was that, in fact, it's in the small steps. It's in the baby steps. What can you do for your fellow human beings and fellow, the children and the flowers and the trees and the planet? What are you doing to contribute to the health of not only yourself, but the entire planet, all living and non-living things? That's truly your life, purpose, I believe. I've been going without even taking a breath.
So, like in your first near-death experience, when you saw a demon or the devil, do you think it was a separate being from you, or do you think it was like a personification of darkness within your own soul?
That's a really good question. I do believe that we have mirrored, experiences. What's going on in here is actually what you manifest on the outside. So in essence, I would probably say yes to that, but it felt totally separate. It felt like this. It was, as soon as I saw him, I thought, wow, he's actually handsome. I wasn't expecting that. He had the chiseled jaw and the high cheekbones. And I was so scared. But at the same time, I almost chuckled to myself like, Well, that's where they get devilishly handsome from, the term, right? It's who he is. And he was definitely outside of me, but he probably was a part of everything that is on this earth, because we are living in a world of contrast, right? Up, down, in, out, yes, no, black, white, God, Jesus, devil. So yeah, he was definitely separate. But as soon as he saw Creator, as soon as he saw the light beings beside me, he ran. He was gone. It was awesome.
Mm-hmm. So it's almost like Lucifer, because like before he becomes Satan, he's Lucifer, which is like a angel of light that is on par with like Michael the archangel. That he might have
Yeah.
looked more appealing in that sense.
Oh no, no, no. He was what I would see as a devil. I really don't know much about Lucifer and all of that. I don't read books. I don't get my information anywhere else other than downloads. Right. I don't listen to other podcasts. I don't listen to other mediums. I have one really good friend that is extremely psychic, and so she and I chat, but everything else is a download. So if I was to ask, was he Lucifer? Yes or no? No, he was not. I have like this Geiger counter inside. It's like, when the audience applause, it goes, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I can ask a yes and no question. It will go yes, or it'll go no. And so that's how I live my life. I ask yes and no questions for clarity. And I have no doubt whatever I get is authentic, because I've invited it in enough times that it's always, spirit is here for my best and highest good and for the best and highest good of all concerned, right? So is he Lucifer? No, absolutely not. Was he the devil? Yes. And yeah, he couldn't exist in the light, the vibration of the light beings. We call them God and Jesus. I think they're pure light. I think that they go by many names, right? I think that Buddha was different than God. I think Jesus is different than God because they were humans and they transcended. They lifted to a different elevation of consciousness, right? But what we know as God or Allah or, Shiva or many other names, I think that is pure light energy.
Mm-hmm. So like when you saw God and Jesus, did you see Jesus as a human, and then God
Same.
as like maybe a light being or something? They're just
Nope.
light.
No, I okay, so during my second near-death experience, this is where I actually met them and had full conversation. And so as soon as I was brought into the white void by the bird, right, I sat down and I was looking at the seat I was on, because it was like a cloud, but it felt full of love, and it had solidity to it, like you could actually sit on it, but it looked like a cloud. So as I'm looking down, I realized something is moving in front of me, and as I looked up, I literally jumped because I realized a man's standing in front of me, and he was definitely what we would know as God, the white beard and the kind of like Santa Claus almost, looking, right, but God, and just radiant, beautiful being. And then as we were talking, I realized that it's as you hear in all the near death experiences now, and this was 1993, right? At that time, I had no reference. There were not many near death experiences out there. And so we were having communication mind to mind, right? Telepathy. And, and Creator, all of a sudden I could hear and see all these different images and different names. And I thought, what do I call you? And the response back was, it matters less the name that you call me as long as you call my name. So it doesn't matter what term you coin this pure loving energy, as long as you call upon him or her or, it's pure loving energy. I know some people are going to go, "Whoa, you can't call God her or it." It was omnipresent. It was just such a beautiful light energy. And what I realized when I met with Jesus and when I met with God was that Jesus came shortly after that, and he looked as we would know Jesus. And I realized that because I grew up thinking God looked like this, that's who I saw, right? But if I had been brought up Muslim, I probably would have seen Allah. If I had been brought up Indian, or I am Indian, but if I had been brought up East Indian, not Native Indian, right, I would have seen Shiva or one of their many gods. Who knows, right? But for me, my consciousness was looking at Creator. And so I realized that he was just manifesting in front of me as I thought he would look, right? But it's pure energy, pure love.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, because a lot of people today call God source, and then,
Yes,
like when you look in the Bible, like the word Father, when Jesus is praying to the Father, Father literally means source. So when
exactly.
you're talking about the Father in the New Testament, it's source that some people talk about today. It's really the same thing.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. Well, in the native belief system, we call him grandfather spirit, right? Father is another name. It was like I was inundated with all these different names that we could refer to this beautiful light being as. And yeah, it was magical in so many ways. So that was the beginning of a whole series of lessons that I was given. And I had actually asked, am I dead? Because, damn, why am I dead again? I did everything they asked of me. I was like, I turned my life around. I am a good person. I am really conscious of my words. And they almost kind of giggled. And it was, well, you're not dead, but you're not alive. You're kind of in between right now. You can make a choice. If you want to stay here, you can actually leave, because your body is in limbo. But we did want to bring you here to have a conversation because you still are beating yourself up too much. I had a lot of, I'd been hurt when I was 3 years old by a couple actually that were taking photos for an underground magazine in Europe. And we can't say what they did, but it was horrific. And so I had a lot of issues still, of special male energy. And so they wanted to bring me into the light to show me that I was loved unconditionally by what I met as the Council of Men. So I met Jesus and then God, and then God turned and walked away, and Jesus just smiled and he faded away. And all of a sudden, I looked up and I was in between like a semicircle table, and God was at the head of the table. I was sitting in the half circle facing all of these elders, and they were all men. And so they said that they brought me there to meet the Council of Men so I could heal that wounded self that was, wounded from men in my life, and that I needed to heal that aspect, which I've done. It was beautiful. So, they really helped in the clarity of just love yourself. If you could see how much they love you, um, you know, I often say that with clients is if you could imagine looking through Creator's eyes and looking at who you are, feel their love for you, because when they look at you, they see perfection, they see absolute beauty, they see unconditional love, right? And you need to step into that. I think that's part of our life purpose, is to accept that we're not flawed, we're not all sinners, and even if we have sinned, there is forgiveness. And I think that was my greatest fear about going to the other side. I thought, if I ever die, you know, that abortion, it's a big sin. And I thought, they're going to put me down. But on the contrary, what I met were compassionate, loving, unconditionally loving souls. And yeah, it was beautiful.
Yeah, like Council of Elders, I've heard of other NDEs that have seen that. And then there's like a reference in Revelation to the 24 Council of Elders. And I don't know
Really?
if you saw literally 24 or what
12.
number it is, but there's
Yeah.
like a reference. Oh, 12? Yeah.
Yeah,
Huh.
there were 12 elders plus creator, God. So God was in the center, and there were 6 on each side. And yeah, I had never heard of the Council of Men. My first thought were, where are the women? Like, why am I sitting with a whole lot of men here? But it was a true honor in the end. I realized that this was a gift. The only, again, this is 1993, the only person that I found later when I was asking for confirmation, I came across Betty Eadie's book, Embraced by a Light. And she referred to the Council of Men. And I was like, oh my God, someone else experienced it. It was thrilling for me that, there is a feeling of, you question, did that actually happen? Did that really happen? And so I was asking for confirmation. And 2 days later or a day later, I walk into a bookstore and there was Betty Eadie's book. I open it up to the chapter, Council of Men. And I was like, wow, that was pretty cool.
Do you think that these elders were human beings once on Earth, or do you think like they're angels, or
They were,
who
no,
do you think they are?
were they once humans? No. My feeling is exactly that, is that they were angelic beings, but they were of the highest council, the highest order. And they are like, the right hand people of God, of Creator. It's almost like, well, it's a council. What they showed me was that I actually asked, where are the women? And they said, what you're experiencing right now is masculine energy, but there is a lot of feminine energy here as well. And the feminine energy are the angelic ones that do a lot of answering of our prayers. And then they showed me that I could see like all the people on the planet, and beams of light were coming out of them. And those beams of light were the prayers. And then I saw the angels going and answering each prayer individually. And I understood, they told me that not one prayer ever goes unanswered, even though people sometimes feel that they're not answered, because it's in Creator's time. So the prayer will be answered, or is answered immediately. But in our timeline, it takes a little bit of time, perhaps, to be answered. So yeah, they showed that it's an equality, but just with different purposes.
Well, like, do you think was on this Council of Elders, was there anyone like Michael the Archangel or Gabriel or
Not at all.
any of the
No.
angelic beings that people have heard of? Oh.
No, I felt the angelic ones, the archangels, they are very different from the Council of Men. They do exist. I actually had an experience within a week of having my second near-death experience. Again, I'm Native Indian, and brought up very differently on the military bases, and had no reference to Catholicism or Christianity or anything like that. It was far away from me. So I didn't know about archangels at all. I had never heard of them. And so it was about a week later, I think, a couple days later, I went to bed, and immediately I flew out of my body and went into the stars, and 2 beautiful beings came to me, and I knew them as Michael and Ralph. and they were old friends. I wrapped my arms around them. It was such joy. And they were saying, it's all right. You're doing well. Come on. They were really encouraging. So I came back and I realized that was a lucid dream where I was awake but asleep. I knew what was going on. So I was living in Vancouver at the time. That morning, I got up and I went out to Banyan Books in Vancouver. And as I walked through the door, there was a big book right in front of me on a stand. And it said Archangel Michael and Archangel Raphael. And I was like, oh my God, that's Mike and Ralph. That's the beautiful angelic beings that I had just met in my dream time. So they came to me, confirmation again, with confirmation, the next day. So they're very different than the Council of Men. Council of Men is like a mentorship. I want to say a mentorship program. They look at, I think, every single one of us beings here. And what they were sharing was that they were having counsel on me. They were considering bringing me back because we come here with such beautiful spirits, such beautiful souls, and we choose very difficult, challenging lives in many cases. And the reason being is that we want to experience here what we're not in the light. In the light, we're just beautiful. We're beautiful angelic beings. But here, with free will, we get to experience some really tough, challenging things. And ultimately, the goal is to express those 5 lessons: forgiveness, compassion, faith and trust you're on the right path, and unconditional love. And apply it not only to yourself, but everyone around you, right? And especially the people that hurt you the most. So, yeah, yeah.
So besides like the Council of Elders, did you see anything else in heaven or interact with other people?
I met with my memory self. They called the term, actually. I was my observer self, and I met my memory self, and I saw a counselor. So in 1993, there was not much talk about, before you come here, you sit down and you decide all the things that you're going to experience. And so it was a new concept to me, experiencing this. Just before I experienced it, let me go back a little bit. I thought I was actually finished. They had showed me that I was going to be a mama, and I so wanted to be a mom, but because of my abortion, I had so much scarring that I thought I'd never have children. So I really had lost my will to live. And so the council, in their compassion, they showed me that indeed I was going to have 2 baby girls. And so I was really excited to go back. They just as I was about to like jump back into my world, Creator said, whoa, whoa, whoa. Just, he didn't say whoa, 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 but he put his hand on my shoulder and he said, I just have one last question for you. If you were to bring back anything, and ask me a question that you could bring back the knowledge of when you return, what would it be? And all of a sudden, this zipping light came, and it entered just at the tender part behind my ear, and boom! It was like a light bulb, that idea moment in the center of your brain. And I said, okay, so I understand Creator loves the murderers, the rapists, the people that do the most heinous things on this planet, and how can that be? And and he said, it's like this. And he waved his hand, and boom, instantly I was in an experience where I was remembering just before I came here. So I saw my counselor, and I saw my memory self, and counselors talking to my memory self, basically saying, okay, so when you're 3, this is going to happen. And I was like, whoa, because she was celebrating. She was like, yes, my memory self, right? Before I came here, she was like, whoa. And I couldn't understand that, because I was like, well, how does she get so excited about what is to come? Because it was really horrific, and the counselor then stopped. She froze everything. And she said, what your memory self, the self prior to coming, understands is that everything pertains to the 5 lessons, right? Unconditional love, forgiveness, etc. And so she sees this as a wonderful opportunity to apply yourself, apply these, not apply yourself, to apply these lessons and to heal any pain, any torture, right? And also heal not only within, but also without. And so we went through a whole series of questions. It would take a very long time to go through all of that, but it was really beautiful in the end, because what I saw was that also we had a pack, a soul pack that showed up. So 12 beautiful angelic beings walked in to the room with us. And the counselor introduced me and she said, "This is your soul pack. And these are the beautiful," well, she didn't say that. She said, "These are the souls that you travel with from lifetime to lifetime." And they are, yeah. She said, basically, you choose to travel with these people from lifetime to lifetime because they're going to give you the greatest lessons. You're not spending as much time getting to know them. You're instead getting to learn from the lesson of living together and being together, and again applying those 5 lessons. So it was really something to see all of this. It answered a lot for me. It made a lot of sense that, the people that hurt us the greatest amount are actually our best friends on the other side, because they volunteered to come here to have a heck of a life themselves, so they could, give you an opportunity to be compassionate and loving and forgiving towards them. And that's how we grow our spirit. That's how we evolve. That's how we raise our vibration, right? And so that was, it was really a beautiful experience. Came back, and I had a tough experience. I thought that, okay, going to heaven and seeing all this is going to be beautiful. It wasn't. I came back, and I did marry my husband, and we did have our first child. And shortly after, she was 2 years old when we had a 3-time convicted ped come into our house, and he tried to kidnap her out of the crib. And so I chased him out with a carving knife. And I had dreams that he was coming. I knew he was coming, right? I had a sixth sense. And so, I chased him out. I was illiterate. I had failed grade 8, or I had been in the dummy class in grade 8. I failed grade 12. So I wasn't very confident. I lived in a trailer park, right, in northern BC. And I ended up writing and amending 14 laws to protect children. And how does an illiterate woman, they called me the Erin Brockovich of Canada. The media used to call me the Erin Brockovich of Canada, because how does a woman, write and amend 14 laws, bring in Amber Alert to Canada, sex offender registry, raise the age of consent, Child Protection, Internet Protection Act, minimum sentencing, the list goes on, right? How do you do that when you're reading at a grade 3 level? And the only answer I have is it was God. It was God working through me, because I would hear things and then I would act upon it. I would see visions of me standing at a podium and speaking out about what was going on, because it was a silent epidemic back then in 1998. No one was speaking up, and I was the first one to do so in Canada anyways. I started rallies in Edmonton, Alberta, Calgary, Alberta, and calling for a change, in the legal system. And it was all visions, and I would be like, no, I'm not a public speaker. My husband is a public speaker. He worked with Tony Robbins, motivational speaker. I'm not the public speaker. Don't make me do this, please. And they were persistent all day long. I would get this vision, and it just would go on and on till finally I gave up. I said, okay, but you got to make it easy for me, because And I made one phone call and boom, it was to Ralph Klein's office. He was the premier of the province of Alberta. Talked to his secretary. She organized the whole thing for me. I just had to show up. It was amazing. She had the chief of police out. She had everyone. It was a national rally. It was massive. And all I had to do was show up. And I think that is a lot about Creator. All you have to do is show up. He shows you how to move. He shows you what to do next. And you just have to have faith and show up. And so I ended up, working with Interpol in England, in France. I worked with the Justice Committee there. And I ended up winning medals from the United Nations and Queen Elizabeth. But that's another story. Yeah. And it's all spirit driven and given.
Yeah. I mean, it's like when you talked about like murders and rapists, things like that. It's like, well, like half the Bible, half the New Testament was written by Paul, who persecuted Christians and was thought to be a murderer. And then he had a near-death experience, we believe, in the New Testament. And then Damian Brinkley, who actually assassinated people for the government, was actually had an NDE too. So it's like, okay, so if there's hope for them, there's hope for anybody.
Exactly.
It kind of gives everybody hope,
Totally. Well, I can kind of relate to that because when I had the abortion, I felt like a murderer. I honestly did. I didn't want to have that abortion. It was so serendipitous the way things came together. I truly believe I needed to do that because I needed to end up having the near-death experiences. I needed to be molested, in the first place. And then all of that kind of led up to my daughter almost being kidnapped. All of those laws would not have been changed had I not experienced everything that I did. It all led one to another. And I'm getting truth bumps, like goosebumps, right? It's been a life so far, and yeah, I truly believe that I have been not only forgiven because I forgave myself, right? But I've had so many experiences since then. I see and hear things all the time. And I just and I follow. So a lot of people give me a hard time. They're like, Carrie, why are you where are you now? Because I live in Portugal. I'm a Canadian. I live in Portugal. I live in the UK. I live in Canada. And I'm always kind of up and moving again and doing something new. But then I realized, I was supposed to do that because this and this and this happened, right? So, as of late, I've been working with Knights Templars in Portugal, and and I always thought Knights Templars were bad guys. I thought that they were part of the C word, the Illuma guys, and not the ones that I know. Very, very good, beautiful people. So it's just spirit driven and given. I just follow. And I have the odd heart attack in between.
Well,
I've been run off roads. I've had helicopters buzz me. I've had car chases. I've had death threats. I had a white nondescript van in Portugal. It was a 4-lane highway coming back from Lisbon to the coast, southern coast. And I had a feeling, again, Creator's always whispering to me, and a van came up to my right. And I looked over and he kind of looked crazy in his eyes, like, like there was something really off with him. And I heard, be careful. And I was like, okay. He hit the brakes. He came around. He came up this side. And now I'm looking at his buddy that's in the passenger side. And I thought, what are they up to? And I had just been talking about some political stuff. And they didn't like that, right? Because I know a lot of politicians that are involved with some rings, and I've exposed some of the biggest ped rings on the planet, right? I worked with Sergeant Paul Gillespie of the Child's Crime Unit in Toronto. We he exposed Wonderland Club and all kinds of, anyways. So this van, it's, and you could see them kind of conversing. And then all of a sudden the driver does like he's about to go, and I hit the brakes on 4-lane highway, and he brought the car. He was deliberately going to take out my corner, and get me to spin. And I hit the brakes, and he missed me by that much. And he went flying off, and they were shocked. And he took the next exit. He gunned it and took the next exit. Didn't get the license plate on that one, but I usually do. I usually get the license plates from these guys. And I've had so many of these experiences. So Creator's always there. He's always saying, watch out for this one. I hear it all the time. I had private investigators follow me for a while when I was really deep in the PED work. And I would be at McDonald's with my girlfriend, and I would watch this guy beside you. He's filming you. And I'd look up and I'd see him. He's pretending to be on his phone, but he's, doing this. I jumped up and stood behind him, and sure enough, the camera was on, and he had been filming me and recording any conversation that I was having with my girlfriend about PEDs. And so he was like, what are you doing? And I said, what are you doing? He grabbed his stuff so fast, he ran out of McDonald's, and I don't eat at McDonald's anymore. This is, 10, 15 years ago. And he got in his brown van, and off he went. Another brown, nondescript van. Yeah. So, but I've dated like the Prime Minister's son, Jean Chrétien's son, and I learned a lot about elections and the elite, and a lot of stuff. So I had a glimpse into that world, and I think they don't like that, but Creator keeps me safe. I'm always protected.
Well, yeah, and right now there's the big controversy about releasing the Epstein list, and it's not happening, and people are wondering what's going on, because it's
well, I think Trump, I think he has a greater plan. I think that there's something in the works here, and it'll come out. It has to. It'll come out. But he can't bring it out all at once. There would be anarchy. There would be mayhem. If he was to actually expose who is in that list and how many icons, people that they look up to, especially Hollywood and, and all the politicians. I mean, yeah, how many in the cabinet they would have to all come down. I exposed a group, oh gosh, what year would that have been? 207, 203, no, 203, I think it was. Kingsclear Penitentiary, it was a youth detention center, and there was an RCMP officer in Canada, so police officer, highest orders, right? And the prison guard, Carl Toft, he would sign out these teenage boys to the police officer. Police officer would then drive these boys to the premier's office of one of the eastern provinces, and his name was Hatfield, Premier Hatfield. He's passed now, so I can speak openly about him, and there's enough evidence. Anyways, he used to host parties, senators, judges, well-known artists, some really big names. And they would have these boys show up, and they would share them around the circle, and molest them. And so the boys would be brought back to the pen, and they would be talking to their parents the next day. My God, we went to Premier Hatfield's house, and they had us drinking, and, and no one would believe them because they were already in juvie detention for other things. So the parents really thought that the kids were losing it for a long time, until all the medical records were swiped clean by the Canadian government. It was Thelma. She was one of the mothers. She got a court order to go in and look at the medical records of her son. And while she was in the room, she looked in the file. It was empty. So she started looking in everyone else's files while she was in the room. They were all empty. So every single medical record of the, hundreds of kids that were in that detention center, they were empty. Canadian government had come in apparently about a week earlier. They knew that she had won a court order, but they delayed her seeing it. It wasn't immediate. And in that time, they swiped it clean. So this goes up to the highest orders, right? And it's pretty nasty.
Yeah.
But I think it's serving a purpose. It's making us, my mom was brilliant. She used to always say, countries will be judged by the way that they treat their children in the future. This will be our barometer. How does a country treat its children? And I think that's what we're coming to. We're realizing this cannot continue another day. We have to stop this. And in order to stop it, we have to focus on the protection and the love and the safety and the joy of our children. It has to stop. And the way to stop it is communication, number one, but also expectations of our highest level leaders, and to release, members from the cabal. I can't really say their name. I don't know what channel you're on. And yeah, but it's pretty nasty. So unfortunately, I've seen a lot of that stuff because when I first started, there was no reporting system. We had nothing like, child find. We had nothing like that in 1998. And so I was on Canada AM, which would be like Good Morning America. And it was a big TV program. And I was a regular on there, and CBC and all those. And I was exposing all of this, and people would send me what they found on the internet. And so I'd open files because there was still dial-up pretty much back in 1998. It was a real slow system, right? And I would see some of the most horrific images that were, they were pretty bad. And I got PTSD for a little while. I had to take about a year off. And the moment that I said, okay, Lord, I'm ready to do the fight again. I'm ready to fight for the kids. CBC phoned me up, and her name was Judy. She was the head of CBC News in Toronto. And she phoned up and she said, hey, Carrie, we have this case. Can you speak on it? And because I was a foremost expert on pedophilia in the country at that time. And I thought, isn't that funny? Here I had just said the prayer. Okay, Lord, I'm ready. Give me my armor again. It makes me want to cry. Because God, what I've done to protect those kids, all in the name of God, all in the name of listening to Creator. And so that's what you do, right? That's my life purpose. Mm-hmm.
Have you ever wondered whether the Bible was compatible with a near-death experience? In my book, Heaven's Truth, the parallels between the Bible and the near-death experience, your faith will be strengthened while you support this channel. In Heaven's Truth, you will learn about near-death experiences and other similar experiences in the Bible. Support for the Bible contained in NDEs, a central theme that runs through both the Bible and NDEs, how the NDE brings the Bible to life for these modern times, evidence for both the Bible and the NDE, and much more. Great book. Spillers does an excellent job weaving the relationship between NDEs and the scriptures. 5 stars on Amazon, available on Amazon.
Well, I was wondering too, like I've seen other NDEs where, the woman had an abortion, and then when she went to heaven, she saw the child and they had interaction, and there was a lot of love and forgiveness expressed both ways. And did you have an encounter?
Oh yeah, I've had lots. I can't give away the end of the book, but a lot of people cry because it's so beautiful, and it has to do with that somewhat. I do believe that children, they do come as other beings in your life, right? So I actually felt the aborted child first for just a brief time in a child I was babysitting. And the mother was absolutely blown away. She was like, I don't understand, because you walk in the room and she just feels, she coos and she's great and she falls asleep within seconds, not a problem. She's really good with you. Everyone else, she's screaming. And I thought, well, I could feel there was a connection, as if she had been the child that I had aborted. There was definitely a connection there. But as she got older, it had lifted. So I don't know. I think there was a connection there, definitely, probably a soul pack connection, right? And as soon as I'd walk in the room, we knew each other. There was a definite knowingness there. Yeah. But something else happens at the end of the book
Well,
that
like,
I can't give away. Yeah.
did you have other encounters with other loved ones, like,
No,
departed grandparents or something like
not
that?
during the near death experiences, but I certainly have before and after. My first experience with the spirit, with the poltergeist, was when I was 16. It was 17 years old, between 17 and 18. It left on my 18th birthday, and I had never met my grandmother. She died at 32 of a heart attack, and she came into my room when I was 17, and she taught me a lot. She taught me, about near-death experiences, about out-of-body experiences. When you have your first out-of-body experience, it feels like a near-death experience. It feels like you are, what the heck, I'm out of my body. You look back and your body's laying down there and you're sitting up. It was, yeah, she taught me so much, but she was my grandmother. And I think she was there to start to wake me up to what is possible here. You see, I think that we are magnificent beings and we have so much potential, and we are not living up to it. We are so wrapped up in our drama and our crimes and what he said and what she said and all of that sort of stuff. I think we're so wrapped up in all of that that we're forgetting why we're here. And that is to apply forgiveness, compassion, faith, trust, and unconditional love. When we do that, life becomes easy, because you got to apply it to yourself as well as to everyone else.
So are those 5 lessons, it's unconditional love, faith, and what are the other 3 then?
Forgiveness, compassion, faith and trust, and unconditional love. Yeah. Yeah. And when you do that, when you apply those, everything, it heals, it melts away. So I applied that towards my molesters. And now when I think of them, I have compassion for them, because they had a hell of a life themselves to grow up. Again, it's in there in full detail. So it sounds kind of crazy just talking about it here. But if you actually read the whole story, or if we go into a full in-depth interview on it, I think people would realize that, I get it. I understand how. It's like you ask Creator, how is it that you can love a molester? Well, this is how. I apply unconditional love to them. I apply forgiveness to them, because I realize that they're in the earthbound experience for a reason. And that reason is to give other people an opportunity to apply those lessons towards them, and vice versa. They came as volunteers to have a hell of a life themselves in order to help you grow spiritually. You see? When you find that out, you have to say, wow, that's a huge sacrifice they made. And thank you. Yeah. If I hadn't experienced it myself, I know it would be a hard one to actually swallow. But because I saw every step of it, and I saw as the soul pack, 2 of them volunteered to become my molesters. They lifted up and they went to Earth. We witnessed, we all in the room, the other 10, the counselor, my memory self, myself, we all watched as they went into their prospective mothers. And one had fetal alcohol syndrome, one was, just abusive. And we could hear the pain, we could feel their pain. And then we watched them grow up fast, because time isn't what we know, right? Time isn't like this, 100 years. Time is this way, is what they were showing me. Past, present, future, all happens now. So we were literally watching them in hyper speed growing up until the point that they came together and they married. And then they decided to join a network and create images for this underground magazine in Europe. And so then they come to Canada, they meet my parents, they groom my parents like nobody's business. They took a year in grooming my parents. I mean, these guys were methodical. And they took me away for a weekend against my mom's judgment. She had never let any of her kids out of her sight. And they convinced her that, she'd been working so hard, she needed a rest. They'd take me away just for a weekend to my granddad's, cabin in the woods. And yeah, the most horrific stuff happened to me. It was beyond heinous. And so when they returned me, my mother understood what had happened. I believe she had to have. And they showed up at a friend's house. So they were grooming people around us. And they showed up at a friend's house. And I thought my mom was going to absolutely kill the woman. She leaped through the air and scratched at her. My mom was the most passive, beautiful, loving person ever. But the mama bear came out in her. And my father was beside himself. I think my mother kept it to herself. She didn't want, my father was a professional boxer. He would have killed them. So, and my mother knew that. So she didn't want to lose him as well, being in jail for, what they did. So anyways, yeah, that was the experience, was watching my mother go through all of this. So we're watching this at high speed and all the memories are coming back. And then they froze it during the time that I was actually being molested because they didn't let me have the full memory of what had happened. But I remembered up until a point. I knew something had happened. And so we went up until that point, and then we, all the memories after came. I said, well, can I please remember what actually happened? Because I need to heal this. I need to let it go. I want to actually know in order to do that. And they said, well, you can heal it without actually knowing. But first of all, the other thing is it will come when the time is right. You will remember when the time is right. And I did. I was working with T. Harv Eker. He's a motivational speaker, and I was running his cameras for him. And I was behind a camera and he was doing some kind of meditation, guided meditation thing. And as I'm running the camera, all of a sudden my mind started to drift off and the memory came back like that. It was like a door opened and I remembered the whole thing. And it was like, and now it makes sense. And at that moment, that was where the forgiveness started to begin, right? It was horror at first, but it made all the sense, right? Because I had health issues down there from basically 3 years old up until like 19, 20 years old. I was always having these health issues and I couldn't figure out why. As soon as I figured out why, boom, the health issues disappeared because, most of your health issues are linked to an experience or a memory or a thought, right? So it was, it's a free experience. Sorry, go ahead, dear.
Oh, no, I was going to say, do you think that the molesters will eventually find their way back into the light themselves?
Yeah, because I think they were part of the soul pack. And it goes back to asking Creator, how do you love the molesters? I don't get how you love someone that's so heinous on this planet. And he said, like this. And he showed me the memory, right? And so yeah, in Creator's eyes, they were here to do what they needed to do in order to get me, in this case, me, but everyone's had, someone in their life that has pushed buttons or hurt them or betrayed them or left them, abandoned them, whatever it is, right? Physically abused them. So from my perspective, in seeing this, Creator was saying, that was all part of, what you had chose to experience here, because you chose to experience here what you're not on the other side. And that is pretty dark stuff. And if you can still survive that, you're going to grow your spirit. And that's why we're here, is to grow our spirit. So I said earlier that they were having counsel on me, because when we come here, we are these beautiful beings, beautiful light. Every child that comes in is pure energy, right? And it's the influences around them that can bring them down. And so, because they were having counsel on me, they were actually considering bringing me back, because I was worse off than whence I came, is what they said. You're worse off than whence you came. In other words, you're destroying your spirit. And that was my thought. I'm destroying my spirit. And they said, well, you can't destroy, because it's energy. You can only transform or transmute it. But you can actually dull it down so much that you no longer shine, and that you are no better than Lucifer. You can actually go that route to Lucifer, right? From what I understand, right? So, not to say that I was going into the dark part, but it was the self-esteem. It was the lack of self-love. It was just, I didn't want to be here. And I was focusing on everything that was bad in my life. And in doing so, I was dulling my light and bringing my spirit down to a really low level consciousness. So they were having counsel to take me back, because it's like, we better save her now, because if we leave her there any longer, she's actually going to not have anything left, right? And I think that was the conversation they were having. And so that gave me a big wake-up call. It was like, whoa, okay, I got to do something here quick. I got to start applying faith and trust, that I am on the right track, and that I can lift out of this darkness, and I can be one with Creator, and I can have a conversation with God when I'm in my silence, and I can ask for guidance and feel it and sense it and understand it and apply it, right? And that's what I do now. Yeah.
So do you have like practices that you do to kind of connect? Like, do you do like a meditation routine or other
Oh, for
practices
sure.
that kind of
In
heal you?
speaking with Daniel Jackson, it's funny, because I just did this interview with him last Friday. So that was, and today's Monday, right? So it's pretty fresh. And he was saying that he meditates every single day. And I thought, I remember doing that. And I was pretty in tune at that time. And he said, and I do good deeds every single day. And I thought, I remember doing that too, where I'd just be walking down the street, and Creator would say, that person needs a kind word, like you could just feel. And I would look at a beautiful woman, and I say, wow, you look so beautiful today. I love your dress. I love it. Those kinds of words. You're changing the vibration of everyone around you, because you're bringing a smile to their face, you see? And so, I realized that I haven't been, as of late, doing that. I've been so busy with work, so busy setting up, all of the network and, the podcast and everything. And so I've slipped away from my own practices. But yes, I like to spin. I like to ground, go outside and stand barefoot on the earth and just feel the energy of the earth coming up and through me. I like to put my thumb out and spin several times because I feel that whatever is negative actually just falls off me, right? As you spin. And it was a Bringers of the Dawn. I was listening to Barbara Marciniak, and she was saying, you spin 33 times, and then when you finish, you bring your thumbs up and you just stare at your thumbs, and you'll feel like the world is still spinning, but you're standing really strong. And as you do that, you'll feel all of your chakras, they all open up, and you let go of all that crap, all the stuff that you've been holding for a long time. So after sessions, that's what I do. I go and stand out in the garden and out in the lawn and barefoot, and I spin and I let go. And then it's like, okay, I'm good now. Bring in the light, bring in God's light. And I have a conversation with Creator, and I say, thank you, thank you, thank you, always in threes. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you for being with me. Thank you for helping me with that beautiful person that trusted to come into my world and ask for advice. Thank you for being the voice of wisdom and of joy and of love, and allowing me to be the messenger. And then I come in and I have my meal. I go back to a regular life. And yeah. So it's neat. It's like you step into the spiritual world and then you come back to, okay, yeah, we got to feed the dogs, right? That kind of thing.
So where can people reach out to you? You have a website, don't you?
I do. So the website is carriekohan.com. Carrie is in the movie, Carrie. Terrible way to remember, but it works. And Kohan is with a K, Kohan. And if you go to carriekohan.com, you're going to find all kinds of stuff there. I have a free gift of a meditation, a financial meditation, 10-minute meditation that'll change your world. And then I've got courses that you can sign up on. I have new stuff that actually I've been editing for about 2 weeks, and I'll be putting that up. As well, we have The Mystic Compass, both a podcast, and I've been writing music as of late. So our album is The Mystic Compass, Volume 1. And there are 2 songs there that my cohort here. So I have an assistant, Tammy, and her husband and I do the podcast together. Well, he's a digital genius. And so when I wrote the music, he actually put them to a digital system and was able to create this most amazing music. So if you go and check it out, it's on Apple Music and iTunes and YouTube Music and all of that. It's called The Mystic Compass, Volume 1. So he wrote 2 of the songs. They're Carrie and Guiding Us to the Light. Those are our openers for our podcast. And then the rest are songs that radios are picking up, our songs for their playlists. So I'm pretty proud and excited about that. But a lot of the songs are songs that I had with Creator, right? Like I Remember Me. It's all about remembering yourself again and realizing that the person that I'm here is not the person that I used to be, but the person that I remember I once was, right? And then, so we have the podcast, we have that. And then, of course, we have the book. The book is The 5 Lessons of Life. It won 3rd in the world for spirituality and philosophy with readers' favorite. And it tells the whole story. If you go on to Amazon, the reviews are outstanding. They're beautiful, and there's a lot of them. It's been translated into Japanese, Spanish, and Portuguese. And it's been an international bestseller since 2019. So it's done really well. And then I also have, these are like motivational cards. They're like this one. Today's tragedy is tomorrow's blessing. This was my mom's saying, Doreen Laurent. And so it's just, beautiful thoughts for the day. They're just, thoughts. Yeah. So listen to the wisdom of your heart. It's just nice little thought for the day, right? And I wrote all of these. They were actually based on the book, on the 5 lessons, right? So that's available. And then I also have some oracle cards. Now these two card decks are for sale on my website, but they're pre-sales right now. So again, these cards, they're financial spirits and they're beautiful. This one is about creativity. They're just really positive, lovely, uplifting, motivational cards. So not tarot cards. They're just, some people would call them oracle cards. I like to, this is a collection of ideas from the book. And then it's just made into a card deck so you can refer to it every day. Yeah. So if you go to twitch.tv and look up The Mystic Compass, that's where we're at. And you can join twitch.tv for free. It's a really interesting site. I had never heard of it before I met Glenn, but it's amazing. And we can talk freely on that channel. I like it. We also use the same system you have here. So it's a really good system. And I'd, welcome everyone to come over to twitch.tv, sign up for free, and then look up The Mystic Compass, Carrie Kohan's The Mystic Compass. And we'll see you there because we have a lot of fun. It's very spiritual, but it's also a lot of fun because Glenn is quite a card. He's really enjoyable.
Mm-hmm. Well, thanks for coming on today. It was a pleasure to have you.
It was a pleasure to be here, Jay. Thanks for your invitation.
Have you ever wanted to learn to meditate? Check out my book, Meditation for Everyone, How to Quickly Have a More Peaceful, Mindful, and Fulfilled Life, and support this channel. With Meditation for Everyone, you will learn to quickly and easily meditate, relieve stress and anxiety, alleviate depression, and have more joy, peace, and relaxation. What you will learn, mindfulness, the art of stillness, step by step on how to meditate, strategies for overcoming challenges to meditation, and much more. D. Mason said this is a nice meditation book, even for those already meditating. I agree with the statements that it will help to have a more peaceful, mindful, and fulfilled life. 4.6 star rating, available on Amazon.